My name is AJ Whitney. I am the host of Authors Live right here on TikTok. And I have with me today JP Solanki-Davie, whose name I hope I pronounced correctly. Did I get it right? Okay. And October K. Santerelli, both amazing indie fantasy authors. And October, since you're on the top of my screen, I'm going to let you introduce yourself first.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm October, and I am like half a different dozen kinds of queer. I'm like half a bowl of alphabet soup all by myself. And I primarily write dark fantasy. My current books that are out is City of Day, and then coming out in like 2 weeks, mid-April, is going to be The Book of the Witch's Son.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Ooh.
I just did a cover reveal today.
That's very exciting. Ooh, a cover
that didn't
reveal.
come through my feed. I'll have to look for it. All right, JP, you're up.
Hi, I'm JP. I'm a part-time author. My day job is something else, but I'm from Ontario, Canada, and I write a dark ecopunk fantasy series called A Forest Without Trees. And it's 2 books are out already, and I'm working on the 3rd one to be published by the end of this year. And there's more to follow, hopefully at a quicker pace.
Fantastic. Love to hear that. So why don't you guys tell us a little bit about what your books are about? Volunteers, who wants to go first?
I mean, we can just keep going in a circle.
Kind of rotate through.
My favorite.
Yeah. So The Book of the Witch's Son, the book that's coming out soon, is something that I wrote because it's coming of age never actually stops. Like, I have never stopped growing up. I learn something new all the time. So I wrote 4 novellas that follow a character across hundreds of years as they grow up, and each one of them is a different coming of age story for the same character. And then City of Day is about ghosts, and they kill people.
Oh, so I'm curious how that works. A coming of age over hundreds of years.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things where you have a different learning experience all the time, and there are those moments where we realize it's time to make a change. And that's the same thing that happens in a coming of age story when you're a kid, right? And I start with my character at 14 years old, and he makes the decision to be confident and powerful in that one. And in the next one, he decides that he wants to help people more than he doesn't, right? And then the next story, he decides, and so he decides to tell the person that he loves them. And so it's like all of these different experiences that he's kind of having for the first time, and all of these different decisions, and each one of them makes him grow up a little bit more. So it's like repeated.
Yeah, so like you were talking about with yourself, he continues to come of age at various ages throughout his life.
Yeah, I think we never stop doing that.
Right. Did you take these novellas and turn them into one novel?
Yep, that would be The Book of the Witch's Son.
Ooh, that's gorgeous.
Yeah, this is the cover. And it'll be in my hands physically very soon. My proofs are in the mail. I'm so excited.
It's very exciting. And you said that comes out in 2 weeks?
Comes out in about 2 weeks. Yep. For my birthday, I'm releasing it.
Ooh, nice. Happy early birthday.
That's awesome.
All right, JP, tell us a little bit about A Forest Without Trees.
Yep. So I was trying to like think of what to say that wasn't on my blurb. And so it's a book where the currency is not in money. It's about points and being in a voyeuristic society and a culture that feeds off of just any kind of game that exists in terms of a way of entertaining and distracting the population. It's also ultimately about a young woman's attempt to escape this like confined life that she's been forced into to get back home to her mother. And I'm sorry if you hear like lots of noises. I can hear my husband moving something upstairs right now. So
that's okay.
You're like wondering what that noise is. I am too.
I mean, my furnace just started in that closet right there. So,
but yeah, so it's a dark eco-punk fantasy, and it's my exploration of what humanity could potentially be like in 600 years, in that we're still going to be having the same kinds of struggles for power and people deceiving other people, but instead of having the same kinds of dualities that we exist in our modern day society now, I'm changing what the hierarchy is based off of. So that was a freedom that I decided to give myself with regards to race and ethnicity, and even just like money itself, and like, you know, gender norms and all this stuff, because it was like that won't apply in 600 years in my book.
Hopefully not.
Yeah, I don't think it will.
So for any viewers who might not know, would you tell us a little bit about what you mean by eco-punk?
Yeah, so if you've heard of this subgenre or genre of cyberpunk, which is kind of like an offshoot of sci-fi, there's other subgenres like steampunk that a lot of people are familiar with. And so eco-punk, because the energy is deriving from the earth itself, and it's a very nature-based story, but has that cyberpunk feel to it. So it's, I can't give too much away, but there's definitely a hybrid of what we would consider modern technology and then like earthly technologies, including like the mycelium network of fungi that communicate and stuff like that.
Yeah, and there's a situation involving nature versus cities in the series, right?
Yeah, so the idea is that the Federation is a civilization that used to be hidden within the mountains because of the floods and the storms. And so when they came out of the mountains, they repopulated a section of like the outer world or whatever. And there were people living there, and they thought they were just, you know, climate refugees, and they were going to come help them. And so they kind of resettle on this land, and over the period of however many decades, they end up building this big perimeter shield that isolates them from the rest of the planet, not knowing that there's civilizations outside of their own that have been living for hundreds of years without needing to hide from nature as much. So it's that discovery of what's beyond the shield, and those that already know what's out on the other side of the shield trying to keep it a secret because of, yeah, don't want to spoil everything. And so yeah, it becomes kind of a combat between those that are like shielding themselves from nature and those that are like, we can't do that, we are nature, and so here's how we have to work with it.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, running off to live in a cabin in the woods is my fantasy, so it's kind of appealing.
Yeah, and I mean, at the time that we're living in now, there's so much wrong with our planet and the way that we're relating to it. And I do see that strong dichotomy of how some people really just want to buy something to make themselves more comfortable, and some people want to run into the woods. And then some people go, I want to run in the woods, but how can I feasibly do that and still be comfortable? And so I think that there's like a lot of wiggle room, and humans are endlessly creative. And so I have confidence that if we're going to survive, we're going to survive in a good way. So,
And I feel like just that backstory of your book explains eco-punk so well too. Yeah. Very environmentally friendly, I guess, or pro-environmentalism.
Yeah. Yay, nature.
Right. And I didn't want to interrupt anybody, but thank you so much for the gifts you guys have been giving. That's so sweet. All right, so how did you guys come up with the idea for your stories?
For City of Day, I actually came up with the story from a line in Sinbad, like the original Sinbad stories. I have an antique copy, and so I was flipping through, and there's one story where he goes to a jungle island, and there's gorillas that come out of the jungle at night, and so people are like, oh, it's not safe to stay there, so they all sleep on ships. And I was like, that's really fascinating, but maybe not with gorillas. And I made him the ghosts instead, and that's how City of Day came to be. Was just a reimagining of a Sinbad story.
Interesting. I didn't realize that.
It's a really obscure story. Like, I'm not surprised.
Now everyone knows. That's so cute. I love that. Yeah, stories are everywhere. I love that. Mine came to me in a dream. So I mean, it was 2006. I woke up and was like, whoa, that was like a really cool story. And I'm definitely one of those witchy type people that looks for being in the flow of the cosmic energies and that kind of a thing. And so I remember telling a friend of mine that I had this dream to make a really cool story, and she was like, "Yeah, that'd be awesome." And my uncle can publish it for you. And my father-in-law, who is her uncle, is this tiny small publishing company that he runs, and so that's actually like manifested, which was really bizarre to me because I didn't at the time was like, oh yeah, sure. And then a year or two later, she introduced me to my current husband. Anyway, so that's kind of how it happened. It was this whole like really weird thing, but the story itself just like stuck with me for all that time. And I was like, I need to write this. And it just happened that I was married into the family that was going to make it possible to like make it easier to have that happen where I wouldn't have to like learn everything from scratch, like a lot of.
She like practically manifested your whole future for you.
Yeah. We kind of are doing that for each other because we're both witches. So.
That's so fun.
Yeah. Oh, you've had an idea since 1999.
That's
I hope you're working on it because I'm sure it's a good idea.
Hi, Irene. Glad you're here.
Hi.
And I saw one of my friends, Catherine.
It's so early for you, or the middle of the night. It's so early for you, 6 hours.
Oh, goodness. That's true. Yeah.
She's in South Africa, so that's like.
Oh, yeah. I know I had a guest one time, maybe last summer, who was in the UK, and it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. And he was like, it's all right. I'll just stay up for it. Okay.
Alrighty.
I would have been falling asleep in the middle if it was me, but.
Yeah. And actually, Nisi, the dream itself is part of the dream that I had is in the book. So when you read A Forest Without Trees, you're not going to explicitly say this was the dream that I had, but you can try and figure it out.
Is it in the book as a dream? Like somebody's dreaming it?
Yeah.
That's a really cool idea.
Yeah, there's a lot of dreams in the story, and like there's another element of the eco-punk part where it's different means of communication beyond just like these kinds of technologies. So I was looking at the mycelium network with tree roots and stuff, but that I was also considering how people could communicate through lucid dreaming. And so that's an element that's in there too.
Mm-hmm. That's very cool. So, JP, I'm thinking about your books as a series. And obviously, they're going to work off the same storyline, but they're going to have separate plots.
The story is a little more like a serial in that so I have them here. And so this is the first one, and then the second one is this one. And so this book ends, and this one picks up immediately where it left off. So each book does have its own story and like plots that are happening, but it's all woven together. And so the character arcs go through several stories
throughout the series. Yeah. Could you kind of differentiate the two books for us plot wise without too many spoilers?
I'll try. Okay. So the first book is where you get introduced to the world. You get to meet Tara, who is the main protagonist. She's the one who's trying to get to her mother. You learn about how everyone on the planet has extra cerebral abilities, which are kind of like superpowers. And you get a sense of like, okay, this is the voyeuristic world that she's being thrown into, even though she's not from that society. She was taken from her family. And I don't want to get too much in the circumstances because then this will be a very long explanation. And so she was essentially living in like a child detention center, like as a teenager for many years. And because it's a world with games, she, along with many others, were being given the opportunity to prove that they were worthy to be a player and run an obstacle course. And if they could run the obstacle course well enough, they could be like collected by the controller or whatever. And so she ends up getting collected by someone who she would least expected. And that unfolds what happens. And then at the end of the story, she's so close to reaching her goal, but then it's snatched away from her. And so then in the second book, it takes you deeper into the levels of control that are placed on her, but you're also introduced to more of the rebellion that is happening in the underground that's beyond just her struggle. And you're also introduced a bit more into her family that are coming from the outside. And those people are known as the Cullis. And so it's like this group of guardians of nature who are coming in to try and rescue her, so to speak. But yeah, this book ends with another intense, and I don't want to give that. That's like where it's like, oh, it ends with a bit of a bang. My friend Silas would say, make sure you put lots of, if something gets boring in your story, just make something explode. So,
I always heard throw in a jar.
I gotta remember that.
Yeah, I'd already planned the ending of this book to have kind of that explosiveness. And so the third book starts with that like really intense energy. And yeah, as the story goes on, there's lots of like characters that explore a lot of different aspects of being human, and I have a lot of fun with that. Oh, wow.
Thank you. Cool. Thank you for the gifts. That was a really fun one. I haven't seen that one before, the party popper thing.
It's cute.
You're so sweet.
Okay, yeah. October. So you told us a little bit more about the Book of the Witch's Son, but I think all we know so far about City of Day is that there are ghosts that kill people.
Yeah, there are ghosts and they're not very nice. City of Day, this is City of Day. And first things first, I just want to point out, we won an award for this cover. My cover artist is awesome.
It's a gorgeous cover.
Yeah. Yeah, we won Cover of the Year 2023 from Go Indie Now.
I love that.
And
congratulations.
Thanks. That one was fun. It took us a long time to get to this cover. I actually had a different cover on it when it first was published. Mm-hmm. And me and my publisher both were like, that's not what we asked for, but it's really close to publication time. So we put on the old cover and made the new cover and then revised it. So the first editions have a different cover. But the story is still the same inside, which is that this kingdom is haunted by ghosts every night. And the main character, Thistlin, wants out. He's done. He's like, I'm so over this. Until he runs into Mila, who is in trouble. And because Mila's in a little bit of trouble, he's like, all right, I'll help you. And then they end up trapped on the island for one night together with the ghosts that don't like people.
Yeah, that sounds really scary.
Yes. But it's mostly a book about secrets. Like literally everybody in this story has a secret. And it's depending on, whose secret it is, it's going to change everything. Mm-hmm. And all of these secrets kind of tangle in together to reveal this web of chaos. It's very political intrigue, but with a lot of running away from ghosts. So
I like it. That's
fun. Ghostbusters with political intrigue.
I like that.
Yeah. I saw Arini ask what was my inspiration.
Yeah.
And Arini, it was a line from Sinbad, but I completely transformed that story. So.
How about for the cover? What was the inspiration for the cover?
The inspiration for the cover is actually just about this orb. That's what I started with, was I just wanted the orb in the middle and the city inside of it each time. But for each book, City of Day, City of Night, and the last one, whose title is kind of a spoiler right now, so City of something, each one of them is going to have the orb, and the city inside is going to be at a different time of day and look different in each one. And then the hands are going to change, and the character holding them changes depending on whose story it is. So
that makes sense.
Cool. I like that.
So this is going to be a trilogy then.
It is a trilogy. Book 2 is due out this summer, which is great because I'm telling you all right now, book 1 ends on a cliffhanger. I am mean. I don't like you. So it ends on a really big cliffhanger, and that's in like all my reviews. They're like, it was fantastic, and then it cliffhanged. 4 stars. And I'm like, yeah, book 2 picks up a couple of weeks later, right after that cliffhanger, and you find out what happened during that interim, and as they continue on through the chaos of trying to deal with the ghosts and save the entire island, it just gets even more tangled up. Like, book 2 is less about secrets and more about trust, because all the secrets came out, but nobody really wanted them to come out. And then in this book, everybody's telling something, like they're being honest in book 2.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's fun.
Yeah. character growth, character development.
Right. How about The Book of the Witch's Son? Is that a standalone or is that going to be a series?
The Book of the Witch's Son is a complete series of 4 novellas in the one volume.
Just in the one volume. Okay.
Yep, just the one volume. And it's all 4 stories that I've finished writing. And it is a prequel series to a book that I'm writing. But you don't need to read that book to enjoy these ones. In fact, I think you kind of enjoy them more if you haven't read the book. They're meant to come first. So
that's fair. That's fair.
Mhm.
Okay, so arguably the hardest question of the night. Comparable titles. If you liked this book, then you'll like my book. What do you think?
So for City of Day, I actually got a comp in my reviews that I love. It said that it's Castlevania meets Howl's Moving Castle.
Oh, that alone makes me want to read it.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's a really good comp. So it's got fantastic. The whimsy. I guess I have a writing style kind of like Diana Wynne Jones, where I put in character whimsy along with horrible ghosts. And then Book of the Witch's Son is a little bit like The Darkest Part of the Forest by Holly Black.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Where fairies are not good and you have to deal with them.
Mm-hmm. That is
perfect.
Cool.
You came up with those really fast. Good work.
You did, right?
I took notes.
I was gonna say I did the same thing.
I love that. If you don't know, guys, I send all my questions in advance, or most of them, so that people can prepare and not feel nervous. So
it's helpful.
That's why they're saying they took notes. So JP, how about you? What are your comps?
Yeah, so a lot of people have compared mine to The Hunger Games. I've also had X-Men and Ready Player One and A Handmaid's Tale. I say X-Men because of the superpower side of it and kind of that like government control of power type deal.
Gotcha. I know I'm trying to figure out how to put all these comps together.
Yeah,
in my head, so I appreciate that.
Hunger Games is that notion of like society being voyeuristic and obsessed with watching people in games, but there's no bloodbath and there's no like starvation of people because that was like
right.
So there are like these kind of arena style gladiator battles, but they're all for fun, so to speak. And then Handmaid's Tale in that essence of like the feminine underpinning of so much of what the story is, because it is eco-punk, and I very strongly believe in the like the feminine qualities that are within all of us that need to be nurtured more to allow for the planet to be more balanced. And so there's that kind of aspect where there's control over how people procreate or how they are, marrying each other, whether in different statuses. Oh, bye, Irini. It's probably like 3.
It kind of reminded me of, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, Darkest Minds.
No.
Oh, it's a really cool series. It was like, your book reminded me of Hunger Games meets Darkest Minds. Okay. So if you haven't read that one, it's
Darkest Minds. I'll look into it. Yeah, because I've read a few of these, and then I read Ready Player One because that was one that people mentioned too, and I was like, I can see how there's aspects of that because I make reference to this time frame. So there's like pop culture kinds of references and like the collection of action figures that like people have found, plastic rubble piles of things that are now, plastic iPhone cases. I'm just kind of right? They like have a stack of them, like, oh, look at my iPhone cases or whatever. That kind of thing. But yeah, that's pretty much the ones that I've heard.
Very cool. Mm-hmm. Well, let's switch gears and just kind of talk about reading in general a little bit. Mm-hmm. I know you guys know what questions I'm going to ask you anyway, but thinking about just the fantasy genre, mm-hmm. Do you have a favorite author, favorite book, favorite series in this genre?
JP, do you want to go first this time, or shall I?
I'll go first because I feel like for me, fantasy, like I've read, The Hobbit and Tolkien, Harry Potter, these ones, but like it was Margaret Atwood's Oryx and Crake and her Year of the Flood and Mad Adams, like this trilogy that I don't know, I became so obsessed with it when I was in school for art because of the environmental topics that were discussed in it. They're in the Year of the Flood. it talks about how people living in like the deep cities and like the struggles that they were living with, but then this group of people who would live on the rooftops, and they were called God's gardeners, and they had like a garden and like honeybees and all this stuff, and they were teaching the children how to identify plants, so when the flood came they could survive, and then the flood comes and it's not really a flood. Anyway, I found that series to be so like inspirational in a lot of the ways that I just looked at the world anyway. And her books I find to be very because I'm Canadian and she's like a Canadian treasure. So we studied her in school. So I was like, your books are awesome. And she wrote The Handmaid's Tale, so it has that similar kind of
right
her books. And then the other genre that's in the same kind of sphere as mine would be William Gibson, and so Neuromancer and that kind of sci-fi fantasy type of world. Nice. Yeah.
Very nice.
More sci-fi than fantasy.
It's funny, I don't know if I realized before that Margaret Atwood was Canadian, but that makes sense to me why the Canadians are the good guys in The Handmaid's Tale. Although, if I think about it, I'm from the US, but if I think about it even from a political standpoint now, it kind of makes sense anyway, but
yeah,
I just didn't realize she was Canadian.
Yep. Yeah. She's got some great stories, and I really enjoyed Oryx and Crake, because it's like so many of her stories are that kind of like post-apocalyptic dystopian kind of reality thing, and so close to reality that makes me uncomfortable. So that one specifically focuses a lot on like genetic modification of animals and foods and different things. And one example is these things called chicky nubbins, which is basically a chicken with like a whole slew of wings and breasts, and it's got one beak that sits at the top, and they just kind of feed it, and then they can harvest parts off of it to have chicky nubbin buckets. Yeah, it's gross.
I post stories sometimes about things my brother tried to convince me to do or believe when I was a kid, and he tried to convince me that that was a real thing that KFC did.
Well, that's what she's painting the picture as well, and like that. Yeah, that was a very her imagery is very like it sticks in my head so much, and it was like is so real. It's basically happening, and I don't really like it, but I like it at the same time.
She really writes some great things. She really does.
Yeah, I like her.
All right, October, I think we're ready for you.
Yeah.
Mine's really easy. I've been a fan of Mercedes Lackey for a long, long time. When I was in high school, fun fact, I was in conversion therapy, and it was miserable. But my parents weren't censoring what I was reading, and I found the Magic's Pawn series, which features queer characters front and foremost, and it was all about the main character surviving awful ordeals from family and getting out on the other side and doing better. And I was like, all right, I could do that. So special place in my heart from then. But now I have a full bookshelf of like everything she's written. I've bought every book. And my favorite series by her is actually one of her lesser known series. It's called Joust is the first book. And it is ancient Egyptian dragon riders. Oh, it's fantastic.
I like
that. It's so good. and it's like a really powerful coming into your own kind of story, and all about, you know, what kind of society you want to live in, and taking apart the ones you don't want, and it's awesome. It's an awesome series. So that's my favorite.
That's awesome. And I know that this is not what this live is about, but I'm really sorry you had to go through conversion therapy. That's awful.
Yeah.
I know. I don't expect you to like bury your trauma publicly.
No, I mean, like I've been in therapy for a very long time. It happened. I'm out.
Yeah. I'm a school counselor, and I talk to kids a lot as they're going through that stage with their families, and I hate that those things happen to people. So
yeah.
Luckily, it was a long time ago, and my parents have come a long way since then. Like, I came out when I was really, really young. And now my mom is the foremost advocate at her office for queer inclusion. And
fantastic.
I love that.
Because she has a position of like a higher position, so she's like, all right, I'll make the changes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Way to go, Mom.
Yeah, she's pretty awesome.
I love that. All right, well, back to reading. Do you guys have a favorite author or book outside your genre?
Yes. So I love The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. And if you haven't read them, they are a fantastic, like, contemporary fiction murder mystery, but not really. There wasn't murder. But somebody's died and left behind all these puzzles. It's kind of like Knives Out a little bit. And the person who is going to inherit the fortune is also somebody outside the family who is like, she doesn't even know her connection. She doesn't even remember ever meeting this guy. Mm-hmm. And then she's thrown into a fight for his inheritance, and it's great. It's a really good book, and it's really fast-paced. I devour it every time I read it.
That's awesome. I love that. Hey, JP, how about you?
I don't read enough of one author to be like, you're that favorite. I can just like pick up so many different ones. So what I'm going to say is some people that I'm reading that are indie authors right now, just to kind of promote them a bit. So I recently read On, which is a novella by Silas Seabrook, and if he's still in here, you should follow him. And he's got a whole series that comes from that. Like that character is just in this whole other series that Trebinius. I'm not going to say it right. I'm sorry, Silas. Someone else will write it in there. I know they're all in there. And that was a fantastic read. I actually got to listen to it as an audiobook. And then I'm reading Elder Blood by E.A. Setzer. And that's the first book in his fantasy series that I'm slowly working my way through it because it's much more violent than I'm used to. Not that I don't like that kind of action, but it was just like so much more than I was expecting. So I had to read a bit and then put it down. So I need to read more of that. And then Irini left, but I'm starting her romance book, Pretty Average. And then a friend of mine, Alex, he wrote, and I can't remember the title of that book, so I won't say that. Alex Singh is his name. And so those are the authors. Yep.
Awesome. October, what are you reading right now?
I just finished The Inheritance Games last night. I'm reading book 2, The Hawthorne Legacy. But that's not the only thing that I'm reading. I've picked up a couple of books from some of my friends. One of my friends wrote a cozy fantasy called Son of a Sailor, which is a pirate cozy. Nice. And book 2 is Prisoners of a Pirate Queen, and I finally started reading Prisoners of a Pirate Queen. So I'm excited about that one, and that's by Marshall J. Moore. And I think that's it. I think I DNF'd the Aragon series and I made a video about it. So
I read recent. That whole series. I haven't read the new one yet, Murtaugh, but I read that series, and I forget which book it is. It's so hard to get through. It's very dense.
Yeah, I got to like near the end of book 2, and then I was just like, I think I'm done. Like, I think I don't want to go on this adventure anymore. And sorry.
That's fair.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
Whew. I've been trying really hard not to cough in my mic all night.
Oh no.
Just cover it.
You feel the tickle when you see me go. I'm trying not to cough.
Oh no.
Because it's gonna hurt your ears if I do.
Okay.
Now I'm like, oh, I'm thirsty.
I always keep my water right here. Well, I'll just take a little water break.
Mm-hmm.
Hydrate before you dihydrate.
Definitely water.
So October, are you one of those multi-book readers? You read a bunch all at once?
Kind of. I have categories, and I'm only allowed to read one in each category. So, like, I have my physical book category, which is different than my ARC category. Those are the only two I have actually right now. I used to have an audiobook category, but then I learned that I'm really bad at audiobooks. I get super distracted, and then I don't know what happens.
Yeah, I can't audiobook either. My brain goes all over the place if there's not a visual component, and I don't process anything.
I love audiobooks. I'm the
How do you
opposite.
have a physical book category if you don't have an ebook category?
My roommate is like trying to get me to use this e-reader. I'm worried that either A, I will like it and then I will have 10 times my TBR problem, or B, I won't like it. Now I'll know.
That's too funny.
So
I'm like a super homebody, and so I don't go places very often. So I get Kindle books through the Libby app all the time.
Me too.
And I had a new friend of mine sent me his book that I just got in the mail this week, and I started reading it, and I literally tried to tap the page to turn the page one time.
Oh no.
I think I've been reading too many ebooks, you guys.
That's so
oh no.
JP,
yeah, I'm afraid that I'll like it and everything will go sideways. So
that's fair, yeah.
I'm an incredibly slow reader, and it's because I don't always have time to just sit through and read it all in one go, which is why I like audiobooks, because I do spend a lot of time, because I'm a domestic manager of my home, and so laundry folding and doing dishes, having an audiobook can help that time pass really well. But I like ebooks and physical copies of books. And I tend to have categories where it's like I have an ebook going, and then I have an audiobook going, and then I have a physical book, and I just kind of work my way through. But I'm certainly guilty of being like, well, this one's now going to be done, and I'm going to let those ones just kind of take time.
I'm more of an obsessive reader.
Okay.
Where I will read a 400-page book in 2 days, and I can't make myself do anything else.
Right. Yeah.
I've been there.
I crave having those moments with my books, and I'm like, I have to be like, hey, one chapter, okay, go do the thing, and then come back. But
I know I'm trying to be more structured now. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna write for an hour a day, and I'm gonna read a chapter of my book before I cook dinner.
Right.
Instead of typing for 9 hours a day, or
yeah.
I
consume books.
I set up quiet time for myself. So now I'm like, my hard cutoff for talking to people is 10 p.m. And after that, I got 2 hours to read before I have to go to sleep. So nobody's allowed to talk to me after 10 p.m. I'll tell my friends at 9:59. I'm like, all right, it's quiet time. Bye. And I won't talk to them again.
Are you super social?
I have a lot of friends.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. I do a lot of conferences.
Extrovert.
Yeah, I think I'm an ambivert. I get really tired being sociable, but the moment there's people, I can't help it. I have to be sociable. But I love being alone in my house. I do a lot of conferences and conventions. I'm actually going to be at one in Atlanta, Georgia at the end of April called Jordan Con. And I do these and sell my books at them and do panel presentations at them. I did a keynote speech last week, and I'm all over the place talking to people all the time. And all of them become my friends, and then I get more friends.
That's fantastic, though. I love that. Where were you the keynote speaker?
I was the keynote speaker at the Disability Awareness Expo at Front Range Community College. So
that's cool.
I am also disabled. I have something called POTS, and
I do too.
Hey, yeah, POTS is the worst, but also it could be worst. So yeah, I went and spoke there, and then I got to sell my books there, and I'm also a professional disabled and gay person for the Colorado state government. So that's my whole job is I'm part of what is called a community steering committee, which is like a focus group within the government of minority persons. So I'm a professional gay and disabled person for the Colorado state.
The way you put it, I was like, how does that work? I know you saw me make the face.
Yeah, that's exactly how it works. We did an event, oh gosh, a couple days ago. It was Tuesday. Recently, where we went and we spoke to our legislators at the Capitol building, and then we all had lunch, and we found out which bills we can testify on and stuff like that, and took notes on things that we want to start working on.
How do you get a job like that? That's
fascinating. They put up an ad. They were like, They were like, if you're a disabled, or like if you're disabled, a person of color or queer, we're looking for people who have minority experiences. Apply here. And I was like, okay. Like,
let's do it.
Yeah.
Look at that sky.
And it's only part-time.
Very cool job.
So
that's awesome.
Plenty of time to write.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hi, Ty. I was just telling stories about reading your book.
You made it.
Oh, we've gotten way off track, and that's okay, but now I can't remember what I'm supposed to be asking you guys about, so.
You just asked us what we were reading. I think that was the last on the list of questions.
Oh, we might have just got through the questions then. Yeah, is there anything else interesting you want to tell us? Anything, about your books or yourselves, or?
I want to know how y'all got started writing. That's always one of my favorite stories. When did you know that you were going to be a crazy person and actually sit down and finish a novel?
Oh, see, I feel like I decided that I was going to be a crazy person long before I sat down before writing the novel. I consider myself an artist before I'm an author, and that I work in a lot of different mediums, and so I've been exploring how to get some sort of message across in whatever the medium is. And so I had this dream in 2006, but it took me until 2020 to have the time to sit down and start exploring that. And so the craft of writing is something that I'm working on now more so. But I like spin yarn, and I knit and crochet, and I like to draw, and I like to paint and take photographs and make videos, and garden and cook, and just so I feel that like that energy is the same. It's just focused differently, and then refining the craft of writing is something that I admire people who have had that passion from a young age and have been able to like feed into it from that young age. I wasn't taught phonics as a child, and so I didn't learn how to spell or read properly until I was probably 13 or 14, and so I had this very low self-esteem about my ability for a long time. And so now I'm just like, well, I got spell check, but also like I am capable of doing this. Like I know what I'm doing. So that's my little story.
I
like it.
Well, my story starts a long time ago, I guess. Like, I like taught myself to read when I was 3, at least according to the story my mother tells. She exaggerates sometimes, so I don't know how accurate that age is. But I was like devouring like 300-page novels when I was like 7. And I think I've always loved books, and I just kind of always wanted to write one. But I never had any ideas. And then I didn't really pursue it. Like I felt like I was always good at writing, I had good grades on papers and whatever. And then when I was maybe 35, I had this like fantastic, amazing dream. And I was like, that would be the best book. And so like the next day I like wrote down as much of it as I could remember. And then I tried to write a draft of it, and it was awful, and I deleted it. So bad.
My first book will never see the light of day.
And then I would say probably another year later, I sat down on my spring break and wrote over those 5 days, wrote like the whole book. It wasn't long enough to be a book, but it was the book. And had a friend read it who was an English major and wants to be an editor someday. And she gave me a lot of feedback, and I worked on it, and I finally had a book. And like 6 months after I actually got brave enough to let people know I had written a book and let people read it, I got a publishing deal. So
amazing.
And ever since I had that one idea, like the ideas don't quit. And so I'm like, I can do this.
Yeah, it's like the floodgate.
Things I want to write down on paper.
I have my schedule planned through 2027, and then I stopped because it's 2027. So.
Right, yeah, you're working far in advance there. What's your story, October?
So mine, I was also a very early reader, devoured books, but for the longest time, I thought that I thought books were like used cars, like they were new, but just new to me. not actually like new. I didn't realize that writers were still alive. I thought they were all old people.
This is all that has ever been written.
Exactly. And so I was just reading stuff that I just found. Like it's new to me, but not actually new. No, I was maybe not paying much attention. But I loved books a lot, and I was one of those kids who's an overachiever in school, and we did one of those poetry units in 7th grade. Mm-hmm. And my teacher gave mine back, this little packet stapled together with crayon drawings, and on the front she drew a little smiley face and said, "This could be professional." And I went up to her after class and I was like, "What do you mean professional?"
I love the
And she was like, I mean, like, you could be a writer. And it was like, you can do that. Like, that's a job you can have. And it was over. And my parents still are mad at her for that.
You have another job? It's fine.
I got that job after I started publishing. But yeah, no, she told me I could be a professional writer. And I literally never looked for anything else after that. My parents were like, you should go to school, like college, for like a real solid degree that will get you money. And I was like, creative writing. And they were like, no. Yeah. And I went to school for creative writing, and I only applied to one college and got the one major.
There you go.
There's a couple of times in my life where I felt like lightning struck, and I was like, that's it. It's over. Like that's what it is. And I'm not going to change it. It happened when I first heard transgender was a thing. I was like, oh, that's me. No questions. That was it. And then I did it again with writing. And I'm like, okay, core identity things just happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I can relate to that with like the timing of things. Sometimes it's like, how come it's so perfectly timed that these things are all falling into place? And I don't talk about it a whole bunch because it's not really necessary, but for about 12 years, I was a yoga teacher, and it was around the time when I was like stepping out of that profession that I was starting to write my story. And I was like, I need to make time for what's most important for me right now. And the passion I want to focus on is not teaching yoga, because I can still practice it, but I'll write a book. And then that book got really long, and now I'm just like thinking how October is like, okay, how many years in it from here I can plot out like how I'm going to plan all these books. All this other
well, I just signed a 12-book series to a publisher, so
wow,
I'm kind of screwed. I'm like, I got a lot of writing to do.
Is this a new series?
Yes, it is a new series. I've been world building it for a while, and I'm about halfway through book 1 right now. I'm also working on another project at the same exact time, so it's going very slowly on both of them. But it's an entire deity system that I designed based on the Western zodiac, and I was like, all right, it's either got to have 4, 6, or 12 books in it. And I was like, all right, 12, I'm in. For a penny, in for a pound. Plotted out the whole series, sent them a full synopsis of book 1 and book 2 and the outline of the rest of the series. They already had read City of Day, and they were like, all right, we're in. So our plan is to start rapid releasing them eventually. So I have to write them, and they're going to dev edit them, and I write another one, and then they dev edit. So I'm just going to stock them up a little bit before we start releasing them.
Stockpile of pre-written books.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
JP, any idea what's next for you?
Well, the rest of A Forest Without Trees has to be finished, and so I'm the 3rd book is with my editor, and I meet with him next week to start going through it. And then book 4 has been fully plotted and mostly written, and so I'm plotting and writing book 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And my goal is to be able to have that kind of rapid release where I can write them more and release them closer together. And then simultaneously, just for fun, because this is a really dark story and kind of makes me sad sometimes, I'm writing a romance. It's just like sweet and spicy and fun, and it's like, whatever, I'm enjoying it. So
the other project I'm working on is a Dragon Rider book. Not actually directly inspired by Mercedes Lackey recently. It was inspired by reading Fourth Wing, which was very, very heterosexual. So I'm writing gay dragon writers because I was like, I want to see gay dragon writers. And I was like, oh, wait, I'm a writer. I can do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I actually finished the romance, Lanisha.
The minute you said Dragon Rider, it brought me back to how you didn't like Aragon.
I didn't like Aragon.
But it just,
maybe I would have liked it better if Aragon were a little bit gay.
That's fair. That
is fair.
Yeah.
I think there should be more just a little bit gay everywhere.
Right. No, it brought me back to this all of a sudden inside joke between me and my husband popped into my head where when we were reading Aragon back forever ago when it first came out. And he said, did you ever notice that Aragon is just dragon, but the first letter is one letter after in the alphabet? And I was like, oh my gosh, you're so right. He was like, that's so not creative. And I said, I know. Maybe we should write a book about Nicorn, the unicorn rider. So that's our Aragon joke.
Where is it?
I haven't written it yet. I know. I don't know if it needs to be like a kid's book or.
I think it'd be fun either way.
Maybe if Nicorn's gay, I mean, that would be good too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyway, we've got only about 6 minutes left in our time, or this will be way too long for YouTube. Yeah, speaking of YouTube, guys, if you are on here but you haven't got to see the whole thing, this will be on my YouTube channel this following Wednesday at 6 p.m. Central Time. So if you want to see more, hear some things that you missed from our two lovely authors, feel free to hop on there and check it out. There's a link in my link tree. You guys, is there anything else that you want to share with us before we wrap up for the night?
This was awesome. Yeah, I like doing these.
It was a lot of fun talking with you guys.
Yeah.
Enjoyed this.
You were nervous?
No, I've enjoyed this.
Oh, you enjoyed this. Oh. I was like, you were nervous. Me too.
So I did a lot of stage and theater when I was younger, and something that stuck with me throughout it was that when you feel those butterflies before you have to go do that thing that makes you feel nervous, that just tells you that you're alive, and that's a good thing.
That's so cute.
So, if you don't feel the nerves before you do something, it's like, are you okay?
Right, it's something happening to your brain.
Do you need to lay down and maybe just chill out for a bit?
I'm relieved you didn't picture us in our underwear.
No. we get thrown off of here for that.
Anyway, all right. Well, here is my shameless plug for the week, folks. I really hope that you want to go out and read October and JP's books. I hope that you will buy them. Oh, and I love the comments that are going on right now. Sorry, I got distracted by that, but you guys are so sweet and supportive in the comments. I have bookstores set up. There's a link to them in my link tree if you want to check them out. I have one on bookshop.org. I also have one on Amazon. If you buy October and JP's books or anybody else's books from my authors live lists, that was hard to say, on those bookstores, our authors get their full royalties, which is wonderful because we want them to get those. But I also get a little bit of a commission, and that helps support my work in providing free publicity for our authors. So if you want to buy these books, I would definitely encourage you to go to my link tree and click on, I change it so often. It used to say buy some books. It might just say bookstores now. Something about buying books, and check them out there. Both their books all their books are available there, including October's pre-order for the new book coming out in a couple of weeks. So I hope you guys will buy some books. Thank you guys so much for coming on and spending your evening with me. It's been wonderful getting to know you and talking to you a little bit.
It's been wonderful to yeah, like same.
Yeah,
all right, well, I'm going to let you guys go. I hope you have a wonderful weekend.
You too.
JP, let's hang out sometime.
Yeah, follow me. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Perfect. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye.